All right. Hello, Erik. How you doing?
Very good. What's up, Danny? How are you?
Oh, good. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Hey, likewise. I appreciate it, and I'm always eager to get on and talk with dynamic people in this space. So, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And we had a phone conversation at the end of last week. I think it was Friday evening, even. Lasted about an hour, I think. And I was really intrigued by what you're doing because you're doing, one of the you're focused on one of the most important pieces of this business, right? With the lead generation
Yeah.
and acquisitions of those leads into deals. And so let's talk a lot about that today because I really loved what you're doing. I think it's great. And we can start with who you are and how you got into the business so that everybody can find out more about your background.
Yeah. No. Okay. So, when people ask me, how long have you been in real estate? That's like the first question, right? When you're networking or whatever else, and my answer is I've been in real estate my whole life. And what I mean by that is that I was born in a real estate family. My father's a real estate entrepreneur. Nothing super crazy outside of he's a 40-year real estate appraiser. So he's been sitting in the real estate appraising seat for 40 years and has owned his own little appraisal office and business, and Bee appraisal service is what it's called. And so that, like growing up in an entrepreneurial family, like that's was our dinner table conversations. That was, that was our world. My mom was fortunate to just focus on being the number one mom. And so, really it was the family business was the heartbeat, for us. And so just kind of real estate was always a topic around our house and everything. And as I was growing older and as I was approaching graduation of high school and all of my friends were off to college and going doing all of that, I just knew that wasn't the path for me, and I was the outsider for sure. Not leaping into college, that was totally the norm.
Had you already been working in your family business? Had you already?
And that was kind of like the thing is that my dad always kind of brought work home to a certain extent. As a real estate entrepreneur, I mean, a lot of you listening, if you've been a real estate entrepreneur for a while, it's kind of like, it's almost a lifestyle thing, like it kind of intertwined. So my whole life I was going on appraisal appointments with my dad, just the sidekick, I'm with dad today doing this, or my dad's bringing home some of the accounting work, and my sister and I would tally up and see who could get the numbers right. It was always ingrained or around us. So
I was thinking you're lucky though, because I had the same thing to some extent for a while. My dad did a lot of different things, but he was a contractor for real estate investors.
Okay.
And so instead of tagging along for appraisals, I had to do all the demo and like the dirty work. I didn't like that at all, but
right.
So
yeah, no, and just being exposed to it changes your vantage point into the industry or whatever else. And I just kind of started developing this kind of entrepreneurial mindset at a young age, just kind of like, hey, my dad does it, and why can't I do it type of, I didn't really understand that that's what was being programmed in my head, but that's the way I saw the world. And so when I had that kind of personal resistance to the traditional path of college and everything else, it was a really easy answer for me because my parents they're no slouches. They were like, if you're not going to go to college, what are you doing? And it's got to be a good plan or, whatever else. They really held my feet to the fire. And my answer was real estate. My trade was real estate. And my parents they always really embraced and never looked down upon the idea of having a trade as opposed to a more traditional path, so that was a respected conversation in my house. And so when I picked the trade of real estate and it was really easy for me just to kind of get right involved with my dad. And I still have a really great relationship with my father. So it was kind of like working with my best friend a little bit, Cool. And so I just jumped right in. And the other side story to my life at that point was that I was really trying to become a professional motorcycle racer. believe it or
Really?
not. And
Wow.
so, I'm like 18, 19, 20 years old, and I have this wild ambition.
Thinking completely opposite things, like real estate appraiser and motorcycle racer.
Right. And my dad's a motorcycle racer. And
Really?
so it was the lifestyle thing, so we would consistently take 3-day weekends. I didn't never grew up with long vacations. We never took week-long vacations necessarily, not never, but that wasn't part of our standard routine. What we did as a family was long 3-day weekends, or 4-day weekends, take Friday off and Monday off, or whatever else, so that we could accomplish racing and traveling around, because we would race all over the West Coast and do these things. And my dad was a competitor, and he loved doing it. So it was just kind of this fun lifestyle thing that I was involved in. And so I would appraise, my dad and we would appraise during the week, and then oftentimes be traveling racing during the weekends. And
Oh, that's cool.
it was a really fun thing, and had me I was really driven to be successful, because obviously the more financially successful you are, the better of a racer you can be. And so I was like really, I was really racing motivated, as opposed to real estate motivated. And but that appraising just kept me in the game, right? Kept me going and kept me progressing. So I got my appraisal license, and then in 2006-ish, right about that time, as we all remember, the world of real estate changed. Mm-hmm. And as a real estate appraiser, and my whole family being real estate appraising, like that was watching a train wreck happen, and the finger pointing of, oh, it's the appraisers for the refi value.
You were in California, right? So that was like epicenter, right?
Oh, totally. And that was a big deal, because ethics, back then, the pain of that moment has worn off. But I'll tell you, living through that moment, the pain was very real. A lot of ethics were being pulled and manipulated in relationships, and like the true sense of greed was there, and all of that. And I remember being 26 years old, and and kind of thinking, wow, this path that I chose is not as safe, or as I didn't know, the level of uncertainty was significant. And so I remember my father just taking me aside at that time and saying, hey, and appraising wasn't my forte. Like I wasn't like a born bred appraiser. That was kind of obvious, at that time. And although, I was very capable in doing it, but it wasn't like you couldn't see it. You could see that it wasn't my calling. Yeah. And my father was like, well, you're kind of more of a natural born salesman and social and, all these things. You should really get your broker's license. That way you're expanding your opportunities to make money within real estate. Get your broker's license. You can still have your appraiser's license, and you can still just, operate this way. And so I really took that advice to heart. I got my broker's license, but the other advice that my dad, my family, gave me was, and they kind of strong armed me into it at the time, because I wasn't mature enough to process all this stuff at that time. But to buy a house, hey, Erik, it's time to buy a house. The interest rates are so low, and everything else in that time. And I could afford it. Not a great house, but I could afford a house. And I had, the financial track record to qualify and everything else. So my dad was like, this is the time you got to do it. And so I teamed up with my best friend, who is a finished carpenter. And together, him and I, we bought the ugliest house in the neighborhood, and it was the house that we could afford. It wasn't a big money-making strategy at that time. It was like, oh, well, we could afford that thing, and, let's do it. And we always knew, like, we could fix things up, and we always kind of had that mentality. So we bought the house, and we did a FHA 203K loan. So the rehab budget was bundled in, and so we lived in the house and worked on the house. And I always tell the story. It's a fond memory of just kind of coming home from work, him and I, drinking beer and fixing house,
Yeah,
just
that's
kinda,
cool.
Just doing that as best friends and everything else. And so we did that. And a year later, after we bought the house and we fixed it, and then we ended up selling it, we both made, it was market timing and things were going our way, but we both made more money in that one transaction than we had in our traditional, work combined. It was like
in a whole
light bulb. yeah, the light bulbs of like, whoa, you can make a good grip of money fixing assets and then selling them, right? And
how old were you at that point? Roughly?
25, 26.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome.
Yeah, but just turning 26 years old and having that realization and so that's when at that stage I was like, okay, wow. I mean, I remember the light bulb explosion in my head.
Yeah.
And so at that point I was like, okay, what books about investing? Like, what's this investing thing? And like, I just dove all in, kind of obsessively, like, what is this angle of real estate? And as a real estate professional my whole life, this concept never occurred to me. And so I just kind of got into the whole real estate investing world as far as going to the RIAs, and I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which again, like, whoa, okay. There's quadrants. Oh, I see. Oh,
there's quadrants. Yeah.
Right. And just kind of like, okay, really understanding, the path of like, okay, if this trajectory means this and this trajectory means that. Oh, all right. So that's when I was like, okay, well, I want to be an investor. I'm qualified. I got everything to do it. And I set myself on that path and just from an educational and awareness stance. And so I started going to, my wife and we started going to the local RIA events, the real estate investor associations. And that's when I met Than Merrill. Than Merrill, who is the owner and founder of CT Homes and Fortune Builders. He was at the very beginning of his education building, path in 2006. And me being, impressionable and go getting and young and all about it, just earned my big first check. I was like, I remember sitting in like the front row of his pitch, essentially at the RIA. I didn't know who Than Merrill was. I'm not a big football. I didn't know the name at all. I don't watch the TV show. I didn't know anything. But I did know, okay, the guy's young. He's just about my age. He's aggressive. He's talking he's dynamic. Like, that's it. And so my wife and we purchased his 5-day wholesaling boot camp right there on the spot in 2006. And this was before they had really, really created anything out of Fortune Builders. And so being one of their first education clients, jumped right in and I had, I think I went out to Connecticut to their original office and met everybody. And like, this is when Fortune Builders was like 5 people big, 6 people big.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It was just really, it was CT Homes is all it was. And so meeting them and really getting along with them, again, I think it was just like age, mindset. We were all just kind of like, we just got together. And so I'm living in Seattle. I'm doing my real estate and doing things like this. I'm now, wholesaling. I'm starting to wholesale. I'm into the education of Fortune Builders. I got Than Merrill as a coach. Where, like, at the very beginning, the coaches were Than Merrill and Paul. Like, I had so I had them as a coach, and they were coaching me along the beginning steps. And I was throwing out bandit signs, man. I was going to I was the full hustle of as real as it gets. And I didn't have the money. I wasn't totally financially loaded. I had to learn how to leverage hard money. I had to learn how to wholesaling works, and I had to do all that. So I was like really, started from nothing on that perspective. And I didn't have a tremendous support from my family, just for what it is, like in the sense that I was deviating into off the beaten path of traditional. Are you a real estate agent? Are you an appraiser? Are you, this is how we do
it's
real estate.
Funny how that works. It's funny how there's that weird divide there.
It is.
There's too much risk, right? Is that what it is? Totally. It's the risk.
And, risk was the big thing. And just being non-conventional and and then, kind of dealing with so you're an investor, you're going to rip people off, dealing with that. Dealing with that stuff. And
that's all fear-based,
Yeah, totally. It really was. And not really understanding the full picture of anything. And so I remember dealing with those emotions and just kind of arm wrestling that within the family dynamic and everything else. And I started having some, getting transactions done. And then all of a sudden Erik was carving my own path. outside of the family route and outside of this, I was on my own deal. And
I bet there was a lot of excitement from that though, right? I mean, it was just like, it's you going down your path and not being guided anymore. Like you matured enough and you're like, okay, this is my life and I'm going to take the reins now.
It was a total coming to life moment. Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah, no, it was a total renegade and a total thing. I had green in my eyes and I had all these things, but I was tremendously driven, like I was so inspired. That's one thing, like when I look back on it, it's like, man, that fire was lit. And so we kept going and really approaching the business with passion and desire. And with that just kind of led me down to being a role, or not a role model, but an example for the fortune builders as a success story, because I was having transactions, I was having success. And so they would invite me to the stage and testimonial or case studies and things like this.
Yeah.
And they kept, promoting me around and showing me off to this, that, and the other thing. And I was digging it, like let's be real. Like that ego feed was real. And I was, yeah, great. I'll show it off. Sure. And, that's just kind of how the path went. And then I got into coaching. They pulled me into coaching. So then I was one of their first phone coaches. And this was all donated time. Like I was like totally just taking coaching calls as a volunteer, essentially.
Wow.
Which is kind of weird.
Well, but you were so thankful for that opportunity, right? And then you learn when you teach. So, I mean,
massively. I mean, like that's exactly what it was. I was super grateful, and it dawned on me like, wow, the more I'm coaching and the more I'm kind of like giving back per se, the better I was getting. Like the clarity in my own mind was getting sharper and sharper. And as you know, like as your clarity in your own mind becomes sharp, you can exchange that very well. You can exchange that information better, more efficiently, more precisely, all that things. And that helps in the professional setting, period. Right.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what I was doing, and just kind of eating that up and really diving into that concept essentially, and doing our own networking and trying to kind of build my own, brand, if you will. And we did SeattleRealEstateInvesting.com, and we were doing, a good amount of wholesales and transactions. And eventually I got asked by the fortune builders to start speaking on their behalf. And they tricked me into this. It's kind of a funny story because
they like told you they were taking it on a vacation or something, and then you find out like you're on a stage all of a sudden. You're like, oh crap!
It wasn't much different, man. I'll tell you, it was. And it's
they shanghaied you. The term Shanghai.
If you knew me growing up, you would know that I was tremendously shy. I was like, there's a big introvert part of my personality, and so. True story, I would skip class whenever I had to do a presentation. I would like some of my biggest fear memories were like having to speak in front of people
I'm right there with you, buddy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know how. Yeah.
It would melt me down. And, and so like I had zero ambition to get in front of people. Like that was the opposite, frankly, of what I was ever interested in doing. And so, but Paul, I don't know if Paul knew this so much about me, Paul Sajan, business partners with Dan. I was, becoming pretty good friends with him. And, but Paul calls me up one day and he's like, "Hey, Erik, we just created this new event called the Full Immersion. And it's an event that I think you'd be really good at. Would you mind teaching a full immersion event for us?" And I'm on the phone. I'm like, "Sure. Yeah, Paul. Yeah, great. I love this coaching thing's been great. And yeah, I'll teach a full immersion, whatever that is. So tell me more about that." "Okay, great, Erik. I knew you would say that. So I already bought your ticket. You're going to be doing a 2-day live training in Columbus, Ohio, in 10 days. I'll send you the PowerPoint presentation and you'll do great, man. Don't worry. You're awesome. And go get them, buddy." Like, wait, Columbus? Speaking? Like I was like, "Bah!" And I mean that's a true story. And he had already bought my tickets.
It didn't occur to you to say, "Hey, pump your brakes. I don't, I don't." Yeah.
No,
But,
I was like, okay.
when someone pays you those compliments, you don't want to.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Right. I mean, I was in that stage of my life. I was like, okay, okay, I'll do it. I guess I don't know what I'm doing, but
A big
sure.
growth moment, right?
Yeah. And so we did it. So I did it. I flew out there and I taught my first full immersion 2-day live real estate training. My first time ever doing PowerPoint presentation or anything.
Wow, how many people?
There was over 100 people in that room.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, first time, 100
First
people.
go. Dude, I'll never forget that moment. That weekend, it was a massive growth moment for me. I melted down internally. I processed massively. I screwed everything up. But the thing that I really learned in that moment was I couldn't fake it. Like that's the one ingredient that I built on, but really carved and pierced me in that moment was like, I had this thought that like, I have to go be this stage guy. I have to be this thing that I am not. Like, this is my first time. I'm not that. But okay, I do know real estate. I am, qualified on these topics, but I don't think of myself that way. And so when I got up there in front of the room, I just remember having this raw emotion of like, just be yourself and tell them everything you know. Just like,
yeah, that's what it's about.
That's all I could do.
They don't want to see how much of a stage person you are. They just want the facts. They want the info.
They want genuine, real.
That's cool that that really sunk in right then.
I had nothing else to do. Like, I just remembered, like, I was like kind of like walking into a room naked. Like, I guess this is it. Like, no hiding now. And so like, I remember that, like, I get chills when I talk about it, because that was like a real moment for me of like, just be raw, be authentic, just be, just share.
So everybody out there, if you want to have that same growth moment, just show up somewhere naked,
right?
Hide yourself
and just go for it. Yeah.
Right.
So I survived that weekend, and the weekend went quite well. Not that I had any perspective of anything, but it went, everybody had a great experience and everything else. Next thing I know, the next event was booked. And then I got myself quickly into a rhythm where I was doing 3 of these per month. So
wow. All over the country?
All over the country. Yeah, and I did that for 4 years, like at a pace of about 3 per month for about 4 years.
Did you become like the stage guy eventually, or did you stay just real and just?
I definitely carved it. I hit my stride, I would say. I went through a lot of training. So I had a lot of personal development and, Blair Singer training and Andy Tanner training, and a lot of these kind of guru type of sales speaker trainers. I invested heavily into that. And because frankly, I kept getting told that I was good at it, even though in my own head, I was like, I did not see myself that way. That was not the way I saw myself. But people were like, man, you're good at that. Or, you're so authentic. And, I'm like, okay, well, all right, as long as we're talking real estate, let's go. And so I went through those trainings, and eventually I did get good. Eventually I understood how to ask enrolling questions and how to tell a story a little bit better and craft messages so that they're more impactful. And not to stroke my own ego, but I feel like I did get good, at that eventually. My nerves never went away. My head, I'm still always a nervous speaker. But over time, with confidence, I just started really stepping into that role and embracing teaching and from a very authentic space, so meaning like I never got to scripted. I never, ever, that never resonated with me. So I got good at being authentic.
Scripting stuff is hard.
Oh, it just strips authenticity out of it. That's how I see it. And so I was always just really committed to being authentic, just like that. If nothing else, just be that. And so I always just really relied on that. And over time, and traveling as much as I was traveling, I eventually got recruited out of Seattle down to San Diego in 2013. When the Fortune Builders, they eventually had moved from Connecticut over to San Diego, and they were building their office space and their momentum there. And at that time, that was a big growth moment for the company, and they had asked if I wanted to come down there and be a part of this growth and really start helping them build out their inner circle program, which is their highest level tiered for their coaching clients. So they needed to provide more value and create more, just more things for them, for that group, for that audience. And I took a lot of pride into that. And so I poured everything I had into, development of curriculum and teaching it best and how to do that. And so I wasn't doing active real estate at all. I had moved down to the whole family, my wife and my 2 boys. We all moved down, drove a car, the U-Haul down from Seattle down to San Diego. We then, I jumped right into curriculum development and workbooks and, how to break down every process. And I was working really closely with Anthony Moore, who is a great real estate professional that I think very highly of, and who was also kind of like in my shoes as a real estate professional that was a Fortune Builder guy. And we were building out, doing awesome things from a teaching perspective. And I really was kind of in a great space. I mean, I loved teaching. I loved the impact. I really, the thing that was really attractive to me was the ability to share, something that I'm very comfortable with as far as real estate, but to see how that topic can transform people's lives, take them from this place to this place, or the possibility of what better finances can do for a family is tremendous. And so I just fell in love with that. I fell in love with the stories. I fell in love with the success that we were able to create, and it was very real. And so that was a really cool moment for me. However, at some point, I started to feel empty from a stance that I wasn't doing real estate. And it started to drive me a little bit crazy that I was teaching it and I was talking a lot about it. And I was getting on these bigger stages and bigger topics and things like this, but I wasn't doing it right in the moment. And so that
Erik, try to stick to the script. Okay.
Yeah.
We need to, you're going off of script. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Right.
No, I'm just kidding. No, so I completely understand that. I've moved into the software side of things, and not active in the flipping business for a couple of years now. And it's weird because your whole identity gets tied up in being that person.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, you're not doing it, but you still have this idea that that's your identity. Yeah, man, I get that. So how did you?
It was almost like imposter syndrome started to creep into my head, even though on all practical purposes, imposter syndrome does not apply to me, and however that I could feel that happening, I'm talking as if I am, but I'm not doing it. And, and these things. And so, eventually, and again, I don't want to be over dramatic about it. I pushed through that moment. And what happened is that I beat down the door of CT Homes, which is the real estate investment company in San Diego, run by JD Asajian. I just sat down with Paul, JD's brother, and I said, Paul,
was he upset about the door?
A little bit. But he said, hey man, I said, hey, I would love to be a part of CT Homes. I need to get off the road. I can't be traveling around the country anymore. For my family, it's blah, blah, blah. So I need to be here, and I'd like to be here doing real estate transactions. I think that would help me be a better inner circle guy. And so we all agreed. And so they started immediately. And my job at CT Homes was to develop their direct to seller and marketing and acquisitions. So they were heavily on the MLS acquisitions at that stage. They had a really good MLS process and system that I was kind of in awe over, with the amount of transactions that they were actually doing over the MLS that was too competitive and saturated and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But they were doing it. They were doing over 60 transactions a year right off the MLS. And I remember being like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. But what about the direct to seller stuff? What about that? And it was non-existent. And so that's where I had a lot of experience. And so I said, man, let me develop that for CT Homes. We'll get the direct to seller leads coming in, and I'll carry all the acquisitions, no problem. And we'll build that space out. And so that's exactly what I did. 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, essentially. I was doing marketing and developing marketing systems and deploying marketing, and then everything that goes along with developing that chain of events. So the phone system, the how we analyze it, the scripting, and everything that goes along with it. That's what I needed to bring to the table, polish up, reinvent, whatever else. And CRMs, how to lead management, all of that stuff was kind of landed on my shoulders. And so I just jumped in, and I love it. I love doing that. And one of my favorite things to do within the space of real estate, and actually my favorite thing to do, it's seller appointments. I love going to seller appointments, directly interacting at their house, seller appointments. It's my forte. It's kind of me and my element. It's just, that's what comes natural and easy for me.
Did you do any sales training, or do you just have your own way of doing it?
Sales training, like all of my sales training really came from the speaker training that I was doing previously. As I was learning to become a speaker. A lot of that sales training, how to frame things, how to pace and lead, and all these things. And I was studying NLP at the time, so I was getting into sales psychology quite a bit. And it became really natural for me to apply it in those settings, and comfortable. And largely, just for the context of that, is that, keep in mind, as we started the story, I'm an appraiser, right? I see the world as an appraiser. I was trained at a young age to see the world as an appraiser, walk a property like an appraiser, okay? And so a seller appointment, you're appraising. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what you're there to do. You're appraising while you're building rapport. Like, you're appraising while there's a sales element. But why you're there is to appraise, period. Like, you're there to walk the property. You're there to get it accurate. You're there to get the as-is value. You're there to get the future value. You're there to, like all of that you're appraising. And so again, that's why it fits real natural to I walk right into those shoes and that experience and that confidence as I'm there. So as I go to seller appointments, and as I was doing that with CT Homes, I just created a really good rhythm for myself. And I was just running and gunning. My motto was 5 appointments, 2 closings every single week. What are you doing this week, Erik? 5 appointments, 2 closings. What about next week? 5 appointments, 2 closings.
Makes it simple, right?
5 appointments, 2 closings. That if I can hit that goal, I know my ratio is right. I know I'm not spending too much time in the field. It's not 10 appointments, 2 closings. It's 5 appointments, 2 closings. I really just developed that as a metric and as a mindset and everything else. So my whole world, all of my goals fell down from that. That was it. And
how much time were you typically spending on each of those appointments?
An hour and a half, depending on the drive. Because I worked all of San Diego County, which is I still work all of San Diego County. It's quite vast, but I would, an hour to 90 minutes is what it takes in my calendar. And I did that for a long time, and I did that whole system. Then I managed it, then I had other people, and I started, working the acquisitions and scaling it ultimately, and always trying to outdo the MLS team. So I kind of created my own team of direct to seller against the MLS team, and the MLS team, that's all they did is MLS, right? And all I did was direct to seller. And so we had this kind of friendly competition in the office, who was doing more transactions.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah. And so I got to know their system and really dive in and analyze it. And through that process, it all, at some level, it becomes a game of efficiency. Okay. How fast and how accurate can you go through this process of, taking in a lead, evaluating it, and then going to the property, following up, all of that, it becomes a game of accuracy as the volume increases. And so I started really concentrating on efficiency steps and CRMs and automations and things like this. So I spent a lot of time in that that world. I was part of the Real Flow development team with, and you know, they were always pulling me in there for as.
So this is where you were still with Fortune Builders.
Fortune Builders, yeah. I'm at CT Homes, and I'm still So at this time in my life, I'm full time at CT Homes, and as a real estate professional with no boundaries of time.
Wow,
right?
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm no boundaries of time. I'm at CT Homes. I'm doing all of this. I'm part of, you know, I'm interacting with Real Flow, part of their development because they were invested into Real Flow and everything else. But I'm also teaching once a month on the weekends in San Diego. So I created my own San Diego event. It's called the Office Systems Academy. And at the Office Systems Academy, it was a 3-day event that I did once a month for their inner circle group. But that's where it was my favorite event to do by far. But and not for selfish reasons, which there were some selfish reasons because I didn't have to travel. It was in my neighborhood. This was super easy for me to do, which I loved. But it was my opportunity it was generally speaking small rooms. So never more than 90 people were ever in my room. Mostly between 30 and 90 people were in my 3-day events. And in those events, I like shut the door and lock the door in the sense that it's like, okay, guys, take everything that you guys knew or were doing, leave it out there, including the mastery program, everything. Okay. You're here in my world. I'm going to show you what we are doing exactly. Some of it is going to be right in line with mastery program because it's all based on that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I am going to show you exactly where we deviate, why we deviate, and what the evolution of what we're doing is and how it's going. You know,
can you summarize that now? I mean, like can you summarize the key points you're hitting in that stuff?
Yeah. So,
what you're doing?
Okay. Like what systems are we using? What letters are we actually sending? Not the templates that are in the site, so and this isn't a cut on Fortune Builders or any guru company, frankly, but what, in my opinion, and this is only my vantage point, and again, I don't say this with any venom at all, but the reality is like there's a certain level of just concept and templates that most people sit in. Okay, when you're coached, when you're taught,
no creativity there.
Yep, you sit right here in this duplicatable templates. Oh, this is what we did in the past, and here's the templates, and it's old packaged, and who knows the true performance of that really. Does it really apply now? Is there anything better coming up? Like you don't know, and it's kind of like, you know, you only know what you know. So when somebody gives that to you as the truth, then you just kind of take it and you roll with it, and you don't know any different. Okay, and right. I get that. Having walked that walk, I understand that. There's okay, so what are you guys really doing to get your results? Like, you know, like what is it exactly that you're doing? What scripts are you using? What system are you implementing? What, you know, and where are your challenges and where are your efficiencies? And so I just broke it down as real as it could be. And I did it kind of in this tongue-in-cheek way of like, hey, you know, don't ask Fortune Builders for this document. Okay. This is, you know, only for here, whatever else. And so I did my whole event that way. And I just like broke it down as real as it could be, and as raw. And I would tell it like stories, like, because I was actively doing it at the level that I was, I always had a fresh bag of examples to teach with.
Nice.
Like from yesterday or from this, hey, you know, whatever. And so I would always do that. And I loved doing that. All my case studies were like from the week before or active now or whatever. And so I just really poured into that concept. And because in the little voice in my head was like, that's what I would want if I were sitting here. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I would want to hear. I wouldn't tell me where the templates apply, but definitely tell me where they don't apply and why. Okay. And if I was having a lot of success with short sales at the time. We had a high volume of foreclosures going on. I was really doing heavy foreclosure marketing. Was running a door knocking team. I was doing, you know, couple foreclosure type transactions a week. I was really, really inundated with foreclosures and short sales. And I created just a seamless short sale process.
Nice.
For all the paperwork and because short sales are very painful to work. If you've done a lot of them,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. The level of paperwork, the level of tripwires through the process that can crash your thing on not only your paperwork level, the bank level, and the client level. There's all of these different tripwires, and the completeness of the full package and accuracy of that whole package determines your success in getting a short sale approved. And especially what we are in the game of getting short sales approved at $50,000 to $60,000, $70,000 below market value, which is a task in itself. So in order to do that, and we were doing it with success, we had to be methodical. I mean, we had to really, really break it down and start playing jujitsu with the bank, using, I learned which levers to pull for motivation. I got really, really good at that, which paperwork could stop the system, how to just throw a piece of paperwork into a short sale system that stops the auction, stops this, stops everything, right? Timeline stop. I figured out all those levers, and I was actively pulling them and manipulating the system for my client's benefit. We were doing it.
So what are you doing now? Like what is the gist of the teaching now? Yeah. I mean, because you're going out on your own a little bit here, right? Too, right? Like you're handling new clients, and then what are you doing? What are you doing right now? That's what I want to know.
I appreciate it. So all of this experience and everything that I just kind of outlined right here, that leads us to this moment right here. And so I kind of hit a spot where for a little while I got pulled out of CT Homes. I got offered a great opportunity to build another acquisition team here in San Diego. So I left the Fortune Builder world and CT Homes altogether and went over to another competitor who made me a really good offer to build out the direct-to-seller acquisition. I had a really good reputation in my marketplace here in San Diego for what I was doing, specifically in this space of direct-to-seller. Yeah. And so I made the leap, and that was kind of like leaving my family to a certain extent. I had put 7 years I put into CT Homes and Fortune Builders and teaching and everything. And so that was kind of a big chapter in my life. I left there and built an acquisition team. And as I was building that acquisition team in San Diego again, and going through all of this process again, I knew okay, at that moment, I needed to not just be able to teach my system or my process, but I needed to make it ironclad and really own it. This is my system. And so I spent a year building my system here in San Diego. And what that is I just was in great detail, all of my marketing steps, all of my process of how I'm interacting with direct to seller clients, how am I from the marketing steps to the scripting steps to everything else. I personally, on my own weekend time, would just break it down, because I knew I was doing something that was getting different results than most people. And I needed to kind of package this up to teach it and go with it. So I took that moment, and what I decided was that I was going to make this acquisition process paperless and run it all on my iPad.
Cool.
The tablet had been out for a long time, but this was right in the moment when the Apple Pencil finally came out. Okay. Right at that moment. And to me, when the Apple Pencil came out, that allowed the signing of contracts on the iPad to exist. And when that, all of a sudden I started putting the pieces of everything together, and I broke down my whole process, and I was able to create it on a paperless system on my iPad that is the most flexible and dynamic seller appointment tool that I could ever imagine. It is my scanner, it's my camera, it's my paperwork, it's my analysis, it's my deal analyzer, it's everything is on my iPad. And including now, I have my process is my whole credibility packet, my analyzer, my repair sheet, my every single thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Testimonials, comps, all of my comps that I go out to a property and I sit down with my client to go through a transparent, completely open book analysis of their property to identify which of the selling options is going to be best for them. Is my cash offer going to be best for you? Is fixing your house up and then selling it going to be better for you, or listing it as is right now? Which one of those scenarios is going to be best for you? Generally speaking, 95% of sellers are considering one of those three things. Okay. Yeah. Yes, there's other options to sell your house, but generally, are you going to list it? Are you going to fix it before you list it? Or are you just going to walk away, sell it for as is, cash, or for sale by owner? That's the world. And that's kind of like the simple or layman's term that sellers will resonate with. Okay. Yes. Again, there's infinite ways to sell a house, but when it comes down to it, those are the three avenues that people really will understand and frankly apply. So my whole analysis breaks that down. I have a client net sheet that, based on the numbers that I'm putting into my deal analyzer, it says, this is what my cash is, this is what I can offer, or this is what you would net in this scenario, and this is what you would net in this scenario. So as I do the full analysis with my clients, with them, and I circle the comps, oh yeah, this one's a good indicator of value, okay, yep. It becomes very apparent what's the best option for them. Yeah. And if they do accept my cash offer, they know exactly how much hypothetical money they're leaving on the table, if any. They know why they chose that route over a different route. It's all above board, and it's very supportive. And my clients love this. And so I convert listings just like I convert cash offers. Wow. I convert, awesome. I convert them all with every which way, which is great with me because it's about my clients. It's not about my agenda. And it's me doing a good analysis for them and demonstrating that so that they are very aware. The compliment that I get from my seller appointments and that I love is like, man, nobody's broken it down this way for me. Or man, I didn't realize that like that my net value here could almost be the same net value of over down here. So an example is like a lot of people do that napkin math of, hey, I can list my house for $250, but you're offering me $200. That's $50,000 difference.
Not really.
Okay. When you break down the commissions and everything else, like shoot, maybe that gap is only $15,000.
Right.
Not 50.
And you don't have the time.
Okay. And then all the other things. So I break that down so that they see a net to net to net. Yeah. And that way they're like really weighing apple to apple and not allowing this like kind of this preconceived notion, to skew their decision process. So that's my acquisition process that I developed, and now it's a product. So now I have it's a iPad system. It's my acquisition system it's just now fresh for sale. And what it is, it's just a one-time purchase. You get all of my templates of my deal analyzer, and you get my credibility templates.
What if we did, I mean, we hadn't said this or mentioned this at all, but I mean, what if we did like a quick webinar or something like that? I'm sure people out there listening would love to see all of this, because talking about it's one thing, but to actually see it. Oh, yeah. I mean, would you be open to doing that?
Of course.
All right. So yeah, we can set that up, and then I'll send out something. If you're not subscribed to Flipping Junkie, just go to flippingjunkie.com. Make sure you're subscribed. You'll see these emails. Let's do that. Let's set up a webinar so you can show this stuff off.
Yeah. No, gladly. It's now, like I said, it's now a product, and it's a one-time purchase. And then I have a membership site, or not a member. You get access to the training portal, where I break down my whole workflow, how I use my iPad, how all of the analysis goes, the whole thing. My whole seller appointment process in every level is there, and it's broken down in video form and iPad. And so again, that all goes. Did I lose you?
Yeah, there you are. Okay. Lost you there for a second.
Okay. So at the end of the day, it comes back.
Video though. I don't know if there's something with the video. And if not, we just keep the audio still there. We'll keep recording for the audio.
Yeah, just a quick second here. Hopefully this works.
There you are. Cool.
Okay, cool. So that's my acquisition process and what I do and how I work with my clients there. But that evolved into that's one segment of how I work with clients, and really the other portion that I work with clients on right now as my own company, Real Estate Funnel Systems is my company's name, and we work with clients all over the country to implement the exact same systems I use to create my leads. So everything from the direct mail letters that I use, to the ringless voicemail, to the text message campaigns that I do, the landing pages that I use, all of the Facebook ads, everything that I do collectively, the list management, that's a big thing, knowing your audience and how to pull good lists and everything, all of those layers. It's very complex, as you know, and it's very there's just a lot of important details into those steps, and so that's my world. That's what I know really, really well, and what I've done so many laps into. That's what I help my clients implement in a very lean way, so that which technology they use, why they're using it, how it's integrated, all the way through to make a smooth process. Once you have a smooth process and how you manage everything, then you can start pulling, more marketing dollars to scale the lead volume into that system, right? And so I'm very critical of all that, because as you start driving this business world, in especially with direct to seller leads and the marketing dollars and everything else, you have to know your metrics. You have to know what you're doing and where the results are coming, what's working, what's not, where the ROI is coming from, and everything else. And especially as you start scaling into having a sales team, these metrics really become performance, indicators and everything. So that's what I help my clients do. I get my clients all set up with a very smooth system, a marketing and lead management system. And then I deploy their marketing dollars to generate leads into their business. And then, so that's essentially done for you. I do all of that for my clients. Then my consulting with my clients, it goes into how they're scaling and really using those leads, or converting those leads. So and here's the disconnect that I see in the marketplace oftentimes, which is a lot of CRM people that build CRMs aren't necessarily real estate professionals. That's a hard thing to do. They if you don't know the walk of the real estate professional, it's hard to build software for them. Same with a marketing message. If you're not really a real estate professional, how would you really know how to craft a good marketing message? And so I see that there's a disconnect between kind of the experts and the doers. And so I really wanted to kind of jump into this space and say, hey, I've got a long track record of doing this at a high level, driving leads, but more importantly, how to then take those leads from leads to transactions, to contracts, to how do you break that process down? And because those are the most profitable deals, as we know, and if you get a good handle on working with direct to seller clients, that is kind of, I see it as the lifeline to your business. That's the longevity of your business. If you can control the leads and work with really good transactions this way, that's a really, really good business model, and you're helping people. You're contributing to the real estate space. I work with agents. I'm not like anti-agent guy. I work with agents as well. But I'm very, very committed to the process that I've developed, as far as it's about the client's needs, and me being a real estate professional, facilitating the right transaction for the right reasons with this client. No strong arming, no bait and switch, no this, then that, nothing like this. It's true analysis, true professionalism. And so often do I hear, man, you just don't see this in this space, I don't really see anybody doing an open book analysis. I get it. I know. I mean, I understand that.
Well, I think that's cool, because it's the acquisitions piece doesn't matter without the marketing piece. And then the marketing piece depends upon a good acquisitions piece, because you can be saying, I'm not getting any good leads because I'm not getting deals. But, there's a way to turn those leads into deals that could be lacking, and they might not even be aware of it.
100%. You just nailed it. I mean, like, and I hear that all the time. It's the same excuse as my market's more competitive, or I live in a really competitive market.
Mm-hmm.
We all do. Okay. It's competitive out here. You got to be good. You know,
Yeah.
like I'm a hard ass this way. Like, in the sense that I'm a competitor, you know, I'm an athlete. I see the world through the lens of competing. And, you know, I don't know if that goes back to my motorcycle racing days or whatever, but competition is good. Like,
Well, don't let that be an excuse not to try. Right. I mean,
competition makes you better. Competition is what, for me, is what fuels me to get better. When I'm getting beat, there's evidence as to why I'm getting beat. I go find those and I get better because of it. Like, I just truly believe that. So my acquisition process was a development of me getting better and winning in the field, because it is competitive, because I would go to a seller appointment and there would be 3 other cash buyers there or whatever. I had to get better.
yeah.
And what I knew that, to me, what I wanted to get better at was, I needed to not leave the point of sale. I needed to, if I'm in front of a client, I need to have all the tools, the paperwork, the credibility, the comps, whatever it takes to satisfy their needs, questions, or to build their confidence to sign a contract. And so oftentimes, if you're not well prepared and you just go there for your vantage point, only self-serving, you'll walk in there, you'll evaluate the house, you might make a low offer, maybe you didn't connect with the homeowner, and then you leave without a contract. Now you're trying to follow up and trying to strong arm or fear base or whatever else. As opposed to me, I go in there and because of my iPad system and everything else, I can move with the conversation and I can capitalize on the best scenario there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
And really just never, I have a motto of, like, don't leave the point of sale.
Yeah.
Unless you absolutely have to. Like, that's the decision-making time is now. Be ready for it. That's it. Create the space for it.
Yeah.
And
That's
when
big.
you do that well, you do it with
Don't give them
confidence.
that chance to say, hey, I got to think about this or that. And you put it out there so they don't need to now.
Well, yeah, exactly. You need to think about it. Wonderful. I'm here to think about it with you. Perfect.
That's
like,
great,
great. We have all the tools right now to think about it.
You're out for people to not make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of my philosophy. So
I like that. Now, you had talked about the CRM thing with, like, you know, people not being in the industry and creating the CRMs and stuff like that. And when we talked on the phone, you had said you had used a lot of different CRMs in the past, right?
Yeah. Critical. The CRM aspect is so critical. The more volume you do, the more critical it is. And as we know, follow-up is everything. And so the biggest thing for me with a CRM is just having a clear picture of who you need to talk to when. Like that's one of the biggest things for me, because it's all relationship based. And so whether it's your follow-up sequence or the automation aspect of it, but you just always need to be interacting with your clients and knowing when to do that appropriately. Like, if you follow up with somebody that needs to be followed up every 3 months, but you're following up with them weekly, what are you doing to that lead? You're killing them.
Yeah.
Okay. And the same is true if there's a lead that you need to follow up with weekly, but you follow up with them every 3 months, you lost the lead. It's dead. So the rhythm as to what their need and how you conform with that is critical in the follow-up process. So all of that has to do with the CRM, to your point. And I've test driven so many CRMs. I've built CRMs. I've built a Podio space. I've used Investor Fuse, used RealFlow, used, you name it. Like, I've test driven it and tried so many things. And which I'll tell you, I love Trello. I don't know if anybody knows Trello. Like, I know Trello, but Trello is a project management system or platform that's not real estate based on any level, but that's what I use to run my acquisitions, my follow-up. I use Trello, and I had developed a Trello board and platform that I use to keep myself organized and on top of all these things. And it worked. Frankly, it wasn't broken per se.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really simple. And that was the thing that I really liked about it. It was simple enough to use consistently. And anybody on my team could use it and not be intimidated and know what was going on quickly. So that's why we use Trello as opposed to anything else as we were developing. And so I've always kind of had this love for Trello because of the results that we were consistently able to create. And that kind of takes the story to ultimately how I met you, Danny, which recently, as I've been on this quest of the CRMs and making my acquisition process smoother and better, Flip Pilot came to my attention, and through kind of like a random way. I didn't know you, Danny. I'm not to be real. I didn't know your podcast. I didn't know. And but when I saw your demo that you had just done of your new platform, like maybe a month ago, I don't know, like pretty recently, I had randomly jumped on. Totally, like didn't know, no leading into it, just showed up.
It was like one of your clients had mentioned it or something,
exactly,
right?
One of my clients who knew that I was like, really heavy into this space of CRMs right now. I'm test driving everything and I'm really being critical about everything. He sent me a link and said, hey, this is happening right now. Jump on if you can. I happen to have a little time in my schedule. I just clicked the link and jumped on. And that's when I saw Flip Pilot for the first time. And just the correlation between my Trello board and what you built in Flip Pilot, like, was shocking to me, frankly. I mean, I still and I mean this in the most friendly way. I was like, did Danny get a hold of my Trello board, or like, how did you like create something that was like so in line with visually and things, like with the Trello board that I had used with great success. And it didn't take me more than 5 seconds to kind of have that, like, whoa. And so I buckled in, once I saw that and the way you had it like initially laid out, I buckled into my chair and you had all of my attention, and I just, sat there and watched your thought process unfold as you develop that. And I mean, I've given you this compliment many times since then. In fact, I didn't have your contact information. I didn't have anything. And so what I did is I tried to find you on Facebook. I shot a Loom video, of a screen recording of me saying, hi, Danny, my name's Erik. I really like your program. Can I work with you?
I didn't even get that.
I was just in that because I was really inspired. We
appreciate that.
We saw it the same way, which was really, really cool. And I hadn't ever really been struck by that emotion before, of like, man, that's how I see it. And look, there it is. And the way you've created your lanes, the simple integrations, it's not overbuilt. It's what you need, and consistently and visually, it's the right amount of it's that balance between complexity and simplicity. And I really think that erring on the side of simplicity is where you win, in general. So yes, it's really easy to, what about, and how about, and you get off in these like overbuild or complexities or all of these different things, which is rampant out there. But Danny, I feel like you really were mindful of that and challenge yourself, because I know simplicity is hard. Simplicity is not easy, right? And so I feel, and you never said this to me, but I would imagine that was a big part of your focus and challenge as you built this thing, was really relying on the right.
We did the complex thing last year with the first version. Cost $1 million to build, but it was more of, these are all the things everybody else is doing. We're going to do the same thing. And, we built it, and it was just a mess. It was just crazy. It was just more of the same. It wasn't good. And so we scrapped that even after all that cost. And we said, this isn't right.
Yeah.
It's not right. It's not what we want to do.
Yeah.
And it forced us to go back and say, how can we do this differently? Let's not look at what everybody else is doing. What do we as real estate investors want that we're not finding anywhere else?
Yeah.
Which means we just have to come up with something. We've got to figure something out, and not just, and that's where we were looking at everything. And it did become that simple thing. Like, people want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. They go to see these systems, and there's like, 200 weird things it says that you can't even understand what they are, but you can't easily determine if you can even do X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
And so we just built it to do X, Y, and Z really, really well, and in a great way, to where it's intuitive. Your team can get in there and not spend months trying to get everybody up to speed on the new system. So yeah, I appreciate those compliments. And
well, I mean, the most important compliment to me, and I'll never be shy about sharing this, is that having gone through trying this CRM, then you okay, then the pain of going from this CRM to the next CRM to try this one, and then this, all you're losing business progress every time you make those changes. It sucks up your time, energy, confusion, all of those things. And I had done that several different times recently. And so I'm really in tune with that pain. And the compliment that I give you is that when I bought FlipPilot right away after that webinar, and within 1 hour of me opening the account, I had connected my call system, I had connected CallRail, I had connected my Google Drive, my calendar, and my email. All of that happened in 5 minutes or maybe 10 minutes. And then integrating the leads and making them all into my flow within FlipPilot, working correctly.
Yeah.
All in, I was under an hour.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All in under an hour to get the whole thing set up, and then me kind of like in stride, like, oh, okay, now I got it. And I'm clicking, and everything was working. And I was like, that to me, like, that was the I get I'm nerdy like this. I get chills when I talk about it, because that's a bigger deal than what a lot of people realize. You need something that, it's just such a huge testament to the simplicity of the system, and that it works. It's not overbuilt, and the right things are there. So I've been using it for 3 weeks now or so, and I've put 70 leads through the system.
Cool.
I'm managing everything through there. I'm at running pace now. As far as the lead volume and my activity within there, the follow-up sequence, everything that I'm doing in my business right now, I'm 3 weeks in. I'm somewhere around 60 to 70 leads into the system, and granted, it hasn't been perfect. There's little bugs here and there, but I'll tell you kind of another compliment is, like, yes, I've seen some bugs, and I've let Danny know, and frankly, they've gotten corrected really quickly. But I like the system good. I mean, like, I like the system enough that those bugs are not deterring or like not impacting my opinion, because they are small enough in the bigger picture that it's like, okay, the foundation is here, and that's what I need to know, and that's what I need to have confidence as I'm throwing all these leads in here. And so yes, there have been a couple bugs, and I'm sure you could tell me that you're working on this, that, and the other thing, and which I get it and I respect. That being said, the foundation of what you have here is so sound that it doesn't bother me, and I'm not paid to say that. I would say the very truth, no matter what, because that's the truth is the only thing that would serve anybody. And so, I mean, that's real. So I'm running all my business solely through FlipPilot now. All of my lead generation is all going in there from every avenue. I'm managing every aspect of my acquisition process, and frankly, thereon forward through FlipPilot. And I'm now inviting all of my clients that have this, which CRM should I be using question in their head. My answer is very simple now. It's not only is it exactly what I'm using, which is the most important thing, but I'm very I recommend it with confidence, which is
awesome.
great. And so it's cool. And cool, good thing is I got to meet you, Danny, and just kind of, like-minded people, just kind of getting together and doing cool things is very inspiring to me. And so I don't take any of that lightly. And I just to kind of further my statement of, yes, this is what I'm using in San Diego to drive a high volume of leads, between 50 and 70 leads per month, in my marketplace. But I'm also doing that type of volume for my clients in markets all across the country. I'm driving that volume of leads for my New York client, for my client in Phoenix and in Sacramento and in Seattle and in
so you focus exclusivity per market then?
Yeah, exactly. So my whole vision of what I do and the clients that I work with is it's a quality, not quantity game for me. Call me like a boutique type of business, in other words, I'm not trying to be a big shop, big guru, big anything like that. I'm trying to work with true real estate professionals, entrepreneurs that fall in line with my same kind of core value of how to work with direct to sellers, how to do the proper analysis, and how to really support them in their best way and scale a business with those principles. With my marketing avenues and systems and everything else, I think it can be a huge asset for any company that wants to step into today's technology and today's leverage and everything else and do good business. So I think my specialty is my ideal client is somebody that runs a 2 to 6 person team. The company is that big, like a small.
That's funny because that's exactly how we look at Flip Pilot when we built it this time, was what's our ideal client? And it's smaller team, 2 to 6, because that's what we find in our flipping business that my wife runs. Is that's where we have the most fun, where she enjoys it the most. And it's just the people know what they need to do. They're a close team and business is better. The actual end percentage of profits is much greater than when you have the big, I don't know. We're just all about that right now.
And I've heard you speak to that point passionately, and that was another area that I really resonated, because I feel the same way. And I've worked, I've had the vantage point of working as a soloist all the way to a bigger team doing high volumes of transactions and everything else. And having walked all the different paths, the one that really resonates with me is just like we're talking about, that 2 to 6 person team of really true camaraderie. And you, with the right systems, man, there's no financial, no financial barriers. You'll hit your financial goals. You can have a wonderful impact on your community. You can have a great team. You can have the lifestyle. All of that exists right there. That's what I see.
Yeah. And that's the important thing, right? Because if you don't have the lifestyle, what the heck are you doing?
Oh gosh.
You don't want to wait 10 years to have the lifestyle. You need to have the lifestyle now. If your business isn't allowing you to do that, you might want to look at that, right?
Yeah. You're either, I mean, so I also got into NLP, mind and body, and things like this. I'm pretty nerdy that way, and a lot of this topic they're correlated. When you work in a high stress and high output environment, and you're always in fight or flight, or your team is in fight or flight, always doing that type of work, it's really hard on your health. It is. And the trickle effect is significant. Your relationships, generally, you go interview people that live that lifestyle, ask them about their core relationships. Generally speaking, they'll say they suffer. Generally speaking, there's an underbelly to that high performance game that people,
that whole just push harder, work harder.
Who's bigger? Who's better? Who's this? Who's that?
Yeah,
that's
the hustle,
the dangerous
the grind. It's like the hustle, the grind is not. Anyway, I don't know. Yeah, I've been through that. I don't want to do it again. It wasn't fun.
Yeah. And frankly, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to go around the country and see high performing teams, and I see high performing teams in this little niche segment that we're talking about. There's no wrong there. So I think it's very achievable, especially with the right systems, cool. And not to pull it full circle here, but you do the right systems, it's all very possible.
Well, and that's why I'm looking forward to this, the webinar. We'll put this together if within, by the time this podcast is aired, which is going to be very soon, probably within 2 weeks of this being aired, we'll have that webinar happen, if that works for you.
Yeah.
And maybe right after Thanksgiving or something. And
I'd love to.
Yeah. Cool. So we'll do that, and I'm sure everybody listening will enjoy that, to actually see some of the stuff that you're talking about here and see how that's working and put together. And that's, truly grateful to you for being willing to share that kind of stuff with people, because a lot of people are, keep it here. They don't want to, spill the beans or share the secrets. And, so it's cool that you're willing to do that.
Yeah.
I had to put you on the spot though during the podcast, but
yeah. I'll tell you though, like I had to get over the whole competition thing early on. Like being like I was coaching and doing in San Diego, like I really had to, I wrestled with do I help my competition? Do I not? Or did it? And
that worry
down that road. I'll tell you though, I get the most fulfillment personally from a self-serving angle. Like when I'm helping people, I feel great about it. And if I'm helping people do good business, I don't care if I'm competing against them or not, because at the end of the day, my core belief in competition is that I'm only competing against myself. Am I operating at the best version of myself? And if I am, then great. If I'm not, then I got to get better. And if I stay within those principles, I think that the path and my trajectory is going to be just fine.
I love that. That's perfect. Yeah, because you're focused on yourself and what you're doing. When your focus is external on something else and worrying about that competition, what are you doing with all your energy and your focus? You're doing nothing with it except for just letting it, pissing it away instead of, focused on what you're doing. I love that. Stay in your lane, right? Stay
in your lane. Do it well. And be prideful of it, and like that's the other kind of thing. It's like, man, when you're in your own lane and you're really clear on your own lane, like then just being very prideful of how you approach your lane and bringing that to the table.
Well, I'm glad that you found me and we're calling my staff and they left the sticky. I still have it here. I'll cover up the phone number, but I still got the sticky sitting on my desk, and it had been sitting here for a little bit. And and usually they'll do that. They'll leave the sticky on my desk. But they wanted to make it a point to tell me, hey, have you called that Erik guy? Hey, well, what's special about him? Why? And they're like, well, he just, I don't know. He seemed like he was really, pumped about everything that we're doing. And they just said, you got to call him. Like the whole team got behind you on that one. So that's really cool. I appreciate you reaching out. And I don't know what you did with them. I don't know if you bought them donuts and had them sent here or something, but the team.
I'll tell you exactly what I did. And this is a universal truth. I was very genuine and very forthcoming about my compliment of what I felt about their system. I led the conversation with like, hey, before we get started, I got to tell you guys that I love what you're doing. What you guys are working on is really cool, and I appreciate it. The reason why I'm calling is X, Y, and Z. That's it.
That's way better than donuts.
Really? I'm sure they probably felt that. I mean, it was genuine, and I know, hey, as a hard worker, every now and again, when you just hear somebody say, "Man, I like the work that you're doing right now is awesome, and I appreciate it. It's making a difference for me." Goes a long ways, and so I'm always very connected to that, and so. Whenever there's an opportunity to really genuinely display that, I try to step into that because look, the outcome is you never know, but the outcome can be profound.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I want to work with you. Like that's why we're going to do the webinar. I don't think I've ever done that where I talk with somebody and then decided on trying to do a webinar with them right away. This is the first time. So yeah, tons of gold in this episode. If anybody out there is listening right now, I urge you to go back through because I think you'll pick up different things that Erik has said during this, just like at the end here. That is so much gold, and that'll carry you through no matter what you're doing in life and all your different relationships and all that kind of stuff. Huge, huge stuff.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, it's true.
Thanks, Erik.
Cool, Danny, man. I really appreciate the time. I feel like you and I could carry conversations for a long, indefinitely.
Yeah, because this is like almost an hour and a half too. It's been a while since I even crossed the hour mark with people. So yeah, for sure. I didn't even realize it had been that long. If anybody wants to reach out to you though, just from this podcast episode, how should they get a hold of you?
Yeah, my email is probably the best. It's Erik, ERIK, at realestatefunnelsystems.com. So realestatefunnelsystems.com is our company website. So Erik with a K at Real Estate Funnel Systems, and my my iPad system. If you want to just check that out, the website for that is ultimatesellerappointment.com. The ultimatesellerappointment.com. Yeah, just check it out. And if you have any questions along any of this stuff, email me, hit me up. I'm very giving with my time. So if I can help, I will.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again, Erik. And I'm sure we'll be in touch very soon.
Yeah. Sounds good, Danny. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
See you.